Today we will be showing you how to install a 12x16 Vinyl A-Frame Pavilion. However, they are also available in these sizes listed on your screen. The tools and accessories that are required in order for you to complete your installation will be laid out in your manual. Make sure to review those so that you have everything you need in order to complete the installation. Once you have located all the tools required in order to complete the installation, make sure that you are following all the local guidelines and regulations in order to complete the installation safely. You can start by unpacking the kit that we will provide for you. Make sure to locate all the necessary items in order to complete the installation. If for whatever reason there are any missing pieces, please contact us at the number listed on your screen. Now that you have located all of the items, we can start with post assembly. We recommend attaching your structure directly to a concrete pad or footers. Mark off the desired location for the structure placement that fits your outdoor area using the footprint of your structure. Standard sizes can be found in the assembly manual that will be provided for you in your kit. Set the post in place with the lines that you made and arrange them according to the post layout drawing included with the structure. Note how the top of each post has two cutouts. The flat side should be facing in. Drill into the concrete using a hammer drill with a 1/2 inch by 6 inch drill bit. Fasten the posts using 1/2 inch anchor bolts through the post brackets. Once the anchor bolts are in place, make sure posts are level. This can be adjusted by loosening or tightening the anchor bolts. First, begin by placing the large bottom post trim piece, followed by the 6x6 trim pieces, one for the bottom of the post and one for the top of the post. And lastly, place the top square trim piece on the post. Note that if there is a notch on the square trim piece, to have that facing up. Repeat this step for each post to complete post assembly. You can now move on to the post and header assembly section of the manual. An optional method is to start the screws in the pre-drilled holes before lifting the header into place. Place one of the longer headers in position on the front posts. Attach the header to the post using 3.5 inch brown screws through all the pre-drilled holes. Leave the two outside holes empty for now. Finish fastening the header ends with 3.5 inch wood screws. Each end gets three 3.5 inch screws towed in from the top. Attach the side header to the post using 3.5 inch brown screws through all the pre-drilled holes, including the 3 pre-drilled holes towed in from the top. Locate the 8 braces. When inserting the timber locks to the braces, make sure to note that there are different sized timber locks for each slot depending on the size of your structure. This will be shown in your manual. Now that you have all of your timber locks in place, you can attach the brace to the post and the header. Make sure that your posts are plumb when attaching the braces. You are now ready to move on to the roof plate and ridge assembly. Locate the gable plates and note that there is one side marked to be facing up. Install the gable plate and fasten it to the header using 3.5 inch brown screws. Make sure it is centered end to end. You can now install the roof plates. Make sure to keep them pushed in against the gable plates and centered end to end. Use 3.5 inch brown screws to hold it in place temporarily. Fasten the roof plate to the header using 3/8 inch lag and washers in each hole. Locate the web posts. Install the vertical web posts on the marked locations, and make sure it is centered end to end. Fasten the vertical web post using 3.5 inch brown screws through each pre-drilled hole. Locate the ridge pole. Make sure to align the marks on the bottom of the ridge pole to the tops of the vertical web posts. You can now install the ridge pole. Make sure to keep it centered end to end. Fasten it to the vertical web post using 3.5 inch brown screws through each pre-drilled hole. You are now ready to move on to rafter assembly. Locate the rafters. You can now install the rafters using the marked locations on the roof plate. Fasten the rafters to the roof plates using 3.5 inch brown screws in from the sides and a 2.5 inch screw on the end. Tow in 3.5 inch brown screws at the top to fasten the rafters to the ridge pole. A trick to aligning the rafters when they are too tight is by inserting a screw into the top of the ridge pole and applying pressure to the rafter as shown until it is flush with the top of the ridge pole. You can now install the rest of the rafters. You can now install the diagonal web posts. Fasten the diagonal web posts to the gable plate using 3.5-inch brown screws. Make sure to install the screws on both sides. Slide the vinyl sleeves up and attach them using 3.5-inch screws. Locate and install the end rafters. Make sure to note that one side has pre-drilled holes and the other does not. Fasten them using the same method as the rest of the rafters. Fasten the rafters to the roof plates using 3.5-inch brown screws in from the sides and a 2.5-inch screw on the end. Mark off to pre-drill holes if necessary for the show rafters and drill them out once all the marks have been made. Locate and install the vinyl show rafter pieces. Fasten the vinyl trim with 1 5/8-inch white screws. There should be 16 to 20 inches in between each screw depending on the size of your structure. You are now ready to move on to the roof sheathing and felt assembly. Locate and install the tongue and groove roof boards. Fasten the tongue and groove boards using 2-inch nails. Use 2 nails per rafter. If the roof boards are at all warped or bowed, make sure to pull them down into place with pressure so that the tongue is inserted tightly into the groove. Continue this process until all roof boards have been installed. Locate the drip edge and install on the edge of the roof and flush with the side of the roof with the hammer tacker every 10 to 12 inches. Measure and mark off the drip edge and then cut it as needed to finish off the rest of that side. Continue the drip edge on the gable ends of the roof and cut and fold the drip edge at the top as needed. Once the roof boards and drip edge is installed, you can now install the roofing paper. Roll the roofing paper across the roof and attach with hammer tacker staples. You are now ready to move on to the final assembly. Locate and install the collar ties. Fasten them using 2.5-inch screws in all the pre-drilled holes. Locate all the post trim and decorative trim pieces. Prepare the trim by starting 2.5-inch white screws in the shown locations. Install the outside corner cover piece and slide it up flush with the header. Fasten the corner cover piece to the headers using 1 2.5-inch white head screw per side. Locate and install the corner trim piece. Fasten it to the header using 1 2.5-inch white head screw. Slide the square trim piece up against the arch braces and fasten it using 1 2.5-inch white head screw per arch brace in the center of the square trim piece. Locate the brace cover and position the angle cut on the ends as shown. Install the brace cover using 3 2.5-inch white head screws into the pre-drilled holes. Install the brace trim piece to the arch brace using 1 2.5-inch white head screw centered on the brace trim piece. Attach the square trim piece to the inside corner trim piece from the bottom up. Fasten the square trim piece to the outside corner cover from the bottom up using 3 2.5-inch white head screws, 1 per corner. Make sure these will be covered by the top small trim piece. Slide up the top small trim piece and fasten it to the square trim piece from the bottom up using 4 2-inch white pan head screws. Use 1 screw per corner. Attach the bottom trim to the post with a 2-inch white pan head screw on 2 sides. These should be attached on the sides that do not have the anchor brackets. Attach the Country Lane logo on the inside of one of the headers. It contains the serial number for your structure. Check for any scuffs or scratches that may have occurred during shipping or installation. You can cover these with the stain that we have provided for you. Use the foam cleaning pad included in your hardware box to remove any scuffs or dirt that may have occurred during installation or shipping.